بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Alhamdulillah, we begin by praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for this opportunity for us to continue in our lessons in the Kitab Sullam al-Munawwaraq, written by Al-Imam Abdul Rahman al-Akhdari. And we pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless us in tawfiq and hidayah, and bless us with forgiveness and answering any of our prayers. And may Allah bless us with husnul khatimah and gather us in the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam yawm al-qiyamah. Ameen Ya Rabbal Alameen. In our last lesson in last week, we are still in the Muqaddimah, in the introduction of Kitab in Sullam. I believe this is anywhere we stop, where the author mentioned Muhammadin Sayyidi Kulli Muqtafa Ala Arabi al-Hashimi al-Mustafa. He speaks about salawat upon the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Sayyidi Kulli Muqtafa, the leader of those who are followed, the leader of leaders. And he is, that's what we mentioned, the best creations of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And based on the hadith of Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he mentioned, Ana sayyidu waladi Adam wala fakhr. I am the leader of the children of Adam. And this is an honor that Allah gave me. Al Arabi, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he's an Arab, and from the tribe of Banu Hashim. Al Mustafa, the one who is chosen by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So our lesson inshallah will continue from here. He mentioned after that, Salla alayhi Allahu madam al-hija. Salla, meaning of Salla, it is ar-rahmatu, salawat, salah. It means ar-rahmatu al-muqtarinatu bi-ta'dim. And Salla alayhi Allah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessing the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam with his mercy and glorification. So he is a prayer from the author that may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam with his mercy, glorification. Madam al-hija, as long as the mind. Al-hija, it is al-aql, or we say the intellect. Madam al-hija yakhudu, madam al-hija yakhudu min bahri al-ma'ani lujaja. As long as the minds of human beings and minds of people, yakhudu min bahri al-ma'ani. The word yakhudu meaning yaqta'u, it cuts. Just like when you have a ship, when a ship is sailing, it is cutting the waves, correct or not? As though it's cutting the seas, cutting. So now this is a metaphor where the author is saying that as though that the intellect or the mind is something that is traveling, that is cutting from the seas of meanings, Bahril Ma'ani, the seas of meaning, as though this meanings is like an ocean. All this knowledge and all this meanings of things and definitions and everything that can be understood, it is an ocean that has no end. So imagine that what you call it, this act of traveling and cutting across these oceans of meaning. Lujaja, the meaning of lujaj is the plural of lajja, and lajja is al-ma'ul azim, huge amounts of water. Just so basically, he's saying now the parable is that as though it is a ship that is traveling, and you have big waves of meanings that is present. So the mind has some difficulties to understand certain things from the meanings. So that is why he said, Madam al-hija yakhudu min bahri al-ma'ani. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam with his mercy, as long as the mind cuts through the oceans of meanings, the oceans of meanings. Now, so this basically we call it bara'atul istihlal in balara, that you mention any in the Muqaddimah, something any that carries any the meaning of the content any of the book any that you are going to speak about. Since any he's speaking about mantiq, and mantiq any has to do any with thinking and the intellect, and to differentiate any between what is rational reasoning and not what is not any rational reasoning. So he gave any these parables in the form any of poetry, and even any by his Muqaddimah he tells us any about the content any of the Kitab, that it is speaking any about understanding any meanings and definitions. So by this any we have completed any the Muqaddimah any of Kitab Sullam. So a Muqaddimah yani it is an introduction that gives you an idea about the content. Now inshallah ta'ala we will go on yani to the next one. Then he mentioned wa alihi wa sahbihi dhawil huda, wa alihi wa sahbihi dhawil huda man shubbihu bi anjumin fil ihtida. And then salawat and salam any upon the family wa alihi, and the family of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam are the people any from the tribes any of Banu Hashim and Banu Muttalib, and the progeny any of these two tribes, the progeny of Hashim and the progeny of Al-Muttalib. These are the family of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in the Quran. Wa sahbihi, sahab is the plural any of sahabi, and sahabi and is a person who met the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and believe in the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and pass away in iman. This is any a sahabi. So in our aqidah, Ahlul Sunnah, we believe in that all any of the companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and they are just. So they have any sohbah with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, this companionship with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and that itself is a virtue. That itself is a virtue. So salat and salam any upon the family of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and upon any the companions zawil huda, yani the guided ones, and they are guided by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah praised them in the Quran, al-awwaluna min al-muhajirin wal-ansar wal-ladhina taba'uhum bi-ihsanin radiyallahu anhum wa radu an. And Allah is pleased with them from amongst the muhajirin, from amongst the ansar. And Allah also said, Muhammadun Rasulullah wal-ladhina ma'ahu wa shidda'u ala al-kuffari ruhama'u baynahum tarahum ruk'an sujjadan yabtaguna fadlan min Allah wa ridwana. In the Quran Allah speaks about any the companions and the Prophet sallallahu, that they are wahama ubainahum, they love any one another, and they are strict any towards any the enemies, and they are people any who have any principles any basically. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions ذَلِكَ مَثَلُهُمْ فِي التَّوْرَاةِ, and that is the parable that is mentioned in the Torah. Even the Torah, in the Sahaba, the companions of the Prophet sallallahu, it is mentioned. وَمَثَلُهُمْ فِي الْإِنْجِيلِ, and also it is mentioned in the Injil of Nabi Isa alayhi salam. So we are blessed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be amongst the Ummah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the Sahaba are our role models in life. Man shubbihu bi anjumin fil ihtida, and there is a hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam where the Prophet mentioned ashabi kan nujum, and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned, although this hadith and some say that it's a weak hadith, hadith and it says ashabi kan nujum, yani my companions are like the stars in the sky. This also mentioned by al-Imam al-Mahalli in Usul al-Fiqh, in the commentary of Waraqat, where what you call it, some of the scholars of Ijtihad, they taqlid to the Sahaba, whatever fatwa from the Sahaba, they take it. And this is the initial opinion of Al-Imam Shafi'i, but after that Al-Imam Shafi'i changed his opinion, and there is a saying, hum rijal wa nahnu rijal, they are people of Ijtihad, and we are also people of Ijtihad. Then Imam Shafi'i, he does not accept the fatwa of the Sahaba unless there is dalil that supports that is strong. Then only he accepts the fatwa of the Sahaba. But initially Imam Shafi'i, he, due to the hadith ashabi kan nujum man iqtadaytum ihtadaytum, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned my companions are like stars in the sky. whomever you follow, you will take hidayah from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, meaning you'll be guided. But some of the ulama mentioned this particular hadith and is weak. That's what is mentioned in Sharh al-Waraqat. So that is why so many of the scholars, they do not take any this into meaning of this particular hadith, and so on and so forth. But ala kulli hal, this hadith in Fada'il A'mal, when it comes into the virtue of the Prophet, companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, is taken into account, although it is da'if. So they are mentioned by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam kanujumi fis sama. They are like stars in the sky. Just like when a person is traveling, for example, in the sea and lost at sea, then they will until today also they will look at the stars, correct? No? For direction, even in the desert. So there is a knowledge, specific knowledge in astronomy, that you are able to know where is the north, where is the south, where is in the east and the west by looking at the stars. Now, so now we will enter into Kitab Sullam. So earlier it was the Muqaddimah, it is the introduction of mantiq and also introduction from the author. So now we enter into the contents of this kitab. So he started off by saying wa ba'du, and the meaning of ba'du, it is what you call it, we say kalimatul fasl, and it is to separate the muqaddimah and the content. So in order to separate, we have this faslul khitab, and we call it faslul khitab, the separation of speech. So when you start your speech by the basmala, the hamdallah, the praising of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, salawat upon the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then you say wa ba'du, it is to tell people that we have now gone from one category of speech into another category of speech. So he said fal mantiqu lil janani, mantiq, the parable of logic to the hearts or to the minds, lil janani nisbatuhu kan nahwi lil lisani, it is the parable of grammar to the tongues. What is the meaning? When we study grammar, for example, the knowledge of grammar teaches us about the situation of the end of the kalima, for example, we say ja'a muhammadun, ja'a muhammadun. So ja'a fi'l madi, muhammad fa'il, alamatu raf'ihi dhammatun zahiratun fi akhirih. So knowledge of nahu tells us that this Muhammad is the doer of the verb ja'a. How do we know that he is the doer? By saying muhammadun, by putting a dhamma. So knowledge of grammar, it protect you from committing any mistakes, in speaking. For example, if you want to say ja'a, Muhammad came, but you say ja'a muhammadan, now this is a mistake. Or you say ja'a muhammadin, now automatically people know that you are making a mistake in speech. Likewise, when it comes to the strokes, you put the nominative case and it becomes the accusative case, and accusative case and it becomes the nominative case. Just like for example, a person say darabtu hasanun, it cannot be like that. It's darabtu hasanan. So darabtu I bit. So there must be a maf'ul bihi, and maf'ul bihi it must be in the accusative case, it must be mansub. Alamatu nasab al-fatha. So likewise pertaining to jar, marartu bil masjid, I pass by the mosque, bil masjidi, I cannot be saying bil masjida or bil masjidu. Automatically people know that this is a mistake. So knowledge of grammar, what is the parable of grammar and mantiq? The grammar protects your tongue, so that you don't make any mistakes in your speech. But mantiq protects your thoughts, so that you do not make mistakes in thinking. So this is what Shaykh is saying. Fal mantiqu lil janani nisbatuhu kan nahwi lil lisani. It's parable it's like the grammar for the tongues. Aywa. And then he mentioned faya'simul afkara an ghayyil khata wa an daqiqil fahmi yakshiful ghita. All this we covered in our first lesson when we speak about the definition of mantiq. Yani the benefits of mantiq, that's what we mentioned. Definition in terms of the benefit is faya'simul afkar. We say alatun qanuniyatun ta'simul dhihna anil khata'i fi tafkir. So here he say faya'simul afkar, yani it protects your afkar, yani your thinking. It protects the thoughts and thinking. An ghayyil khata', yani from the blindness of mistake. So there are two things here. Al-ghay yani is what you call it is astray, and khata yani is a mistake. Khata yani is mistake. Yani when we say, for example, yani a person is astray, when he is astray, surely yani he will commit any mistakes. Surely he will commit any mistakes. But sometimes any a person can in a state of guidance, but also commit any mistakes. But to say that both astray and mistakes, now this is the worst situation that a person can be in. What is the reason? The reason is he doesn't have the tools to the correct way of reasoning or the correct way of thinking. So this is basically the benefits of the knowledge of al-mantiq. That's what we mentioned. Then the author mentioned wa an daqiq al-fahmi, and in understanding this particular knowledge, yakshiful ghita, the cover can be lifted. The cover can be lifted, meaning then you are able to see what is beyond. You are able to understand arguments. You are able to understand the subject of discussion, for example, because you have the tools of that understanding. So this is the benefit of the knowledge of al-mantiq. So it can remove the cover of this blindness, or the cover of this ignorance, that you are able to see and understand. Fahaka min usulihi qawa'ida. Then he said fahaka. Yani we have this word here is fi'l amr, from the word khudh. So he said take from its usul qawa'id. And it takes from its principles, its principles, the foundations of this knowledge of al-mantiq. So the author is as though he is saying take from what is from the things that I am giving you, so that you are able to build of your foundations in the knowledge of mantiq. Tajma'u min fununihi fawaida, that you are able to attain from its different sciences benefits, that you are able to attain any benefits from its different subjects or different topics or different sciences of this any particular knowledge. So basically he is saying that you will be able to attain these principles by understanding this knowledge and these foundations that is going to be discussed in this particular kitab. Now, so we have a few words here, and we have the word usul. It is a plural of asl. As for the word fahaka, it means take, and it is in the command form, and it take from its usul, the foundations, qawa'id, the what you call it, the principles. Tajma'u min fununihi fawaida, that you are able to attain benefits from the different notions or the different subjects within knowledge of al-mantiq. All this are basically straightforward, and the author is just speaking about the benefits of learning this particular kitab. Then he says, Sammaytuhu bis-Sullam al-Munawraq. I name this particular book bis-Sullam. Sullam in the Arabic language it means a ladder. Al-Munawraq muzakhraf, decorated, something that is decorated. Just like for example a person decorates the chair, or a person decorates the house, for example we say this is munawraq. So it is, imagine it is a ladder that is decorated. So what is the parable of the ladder of this kitab? So what the author is saying that you are able to climb with this ladder, you are able to understand the advanced knowledge of mantiq. So this particular kitab, Sullam al-Munawwarah, is a book that teaches you the basics of mantiq, that lays the foundation for you, lays the usul, lays the qawaid. That's what he mentioned before. That you are able to understand the knowledge of mantiq. Yurqa bihi sama'u ilm al-mantiq. You are able to reach the skies of the knowledge of mantiq. So as though the Shaykh is saying that there is a manhaj. Like what always we are saying, there is manhaj in learning. If you want to learn fiqh, for example, you have to start off with the beginning, the small kitab. The fault of a lot of people nowadays is they want to start with on top. Because why? Because there is a lot of confusion in knowledge nowadays. Even now, but a lot of people they are confused they want to learn fiqh or they want to learn aqidah and so on and so forth. They do not know where to start, so they thought that by going into their highest kitab, that is the best. That is not correct. So we have to start from the bottom up not from the top down. It must be from the bottom up. This is a manhaj of learning, manhaj of education, manhaj of learning the Islamic sciences. As what Shaykh ibn Atta al-Iskandari mentioned in his hikam, Man sahat bidayatuhu sahat nihayatuhu. Those whose beginning is correct, his ending will be achieved. But those whose beginning is not correct, then it's like building a roof before the foundations. So it will collapse. So the collapse of knowledge can come if we do not follow the adab in seeking the etiquettes in seeking knowledge. So this Kitab Sullam is considered to be the foundation. Yurqa bihi sama'u ilm al-mantiq. And then he said, Wallaha arju. Now this is the reason why he write this book. He wants to attain the acceptance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is why our ulama, they write books. They write books not because of business, not because of making money, but they write book as an investment in akhirah. Wallaha arju, to Allah I put my raja, my hope, an yakuna khalisan, that Allah make my work khalisan liwajhil kareem, sincerity, as a result of sincerity for His sake, laysa khalisa, and free from shortcomings. So this is the reason why he writes this Kitab Sullam al-Munawwarah. And then he mentioned wa an yakuna nafi'an lil mubtadi, and he said that I pray that Allah make this kitab benefit for the mubtadi. The mubtadi is the beginner, a person who does not know anything, for example, about this knowledge. So this is an example of a beginner. When it comes to the intermediate, he knows about this knowledge, but he does not know the dalil. Then comes the advanced. Advanced are people who understand the knowledge and understand the evidences. So we have the difference between mubtadi, mutawassit, and muntahi. This is also mentioned by our scholars when they speak about manhaj. When a person follows the manhaj in his learning, he is transferred from al-ibtida to tawassut, from the beginning to the middle, and ila nihaya, to the ending. Wa ayyakuna nafi'an lil mubtadi bihi ilal mutawwalati yahtadi, that he is able to reach the mutawwalat. And mutawwalat are big books that are lengthy, in the discussion of this knowledge. So that he said that I pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless the beginner, that by learning this kitab, the Sullam al-Munawwarah, that he is able to go to the mutawwalat, that is able to understand the books that are extensive in terms of the explanation, that this person to be guided. This is the dua from the author. We pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless us with tawfiq, and may Allah bless Shaykh Abdul Rahman al-Akhdari with the best of blessings, that Allah can bless a person in dunya and akhirah. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy, inshallah, for us to understand and having istiqamah in learning this in learning any this knowledge. Another thing that I would like to say is that a lot of us, the problem is that we might have the interest to study a particular kitab, but sometimes we do not have the drive for istiqamah. So even if a person learn but without consistency, you will not be able to understand the subject. So we are in need of putting in efforts to learn, and at the same time also there must be any istiqamah, especially in this knowledge, because this particular knowledge, just like in the Arabic grammar, it is a bit dry. Now anyway, go on to the next part. He said faslun fi jawazil ishtirali bihi. So now I have to change. I didn't have time to put it on the slides. So what I will do is to bring the translation in the Microsoft Word. So this is what I will do. Just give me a moment. Okay. Then the author goes on to speak about the permissibility of learning, the ruling of learning any mantiq. So this is what he said, faslun fi jawazil ishtighali bihi. Why the author is speaking about the ruling of learning any mantiq? Because there are differences amongst our ulama. So there are three opinions, and that's what he mentioned in this part. And if you go back into the Isaroji of Al-Imam Al-Abahari, all this is not mentioned. So this is from the author himself, in the sense that before he enters to speak about the subject of mantiq, he speaks about the differences amongst the ulama pertaining to learning of mantiq. So he said, wal khulfu fi jawazil ishtighali bihi. There are differences. Al khulf is ikhtilaf. There are differences amongst the ulama. Ulama Ahlul Sunnah. Ulama Ahlul Sunnah, we are not speaking about other than Ahlul Sunnah. So there are differences fi jawazil ishtighali bihi, to learn this particular knowledge, ala salasati aqwal. So there are three opinions. Salasati aqwal. Then he said, فابن الصلاح والنووي حرما وقال قوم ينبغي أن يعلما. The first opinion is the opinion of Ibn Salah and Al-Imam Al-Nawawi, and it is narrated from them that they say it is haram for a person to learn logic. And the reason why they are saying, and this is important and we have to pay attention here, the reason why they are saying it is not permissible to learn mantiq, the mantiq that they are speaking about is mantiq Yunani. So those of you who wants to write this down. It is important, so that you don't blanket and say that mantiq is haram without any understanding any of the arguments of our ulama. Just like we have a lot of ignorant people nowadays in our society that says learning Aqidah Sanusiyah is haram. This is one of the, what you call it, we say jahl murakkab, a person who doesn't know about Aqidah Sanusiyah, and he thought he knew about Aqidah Sanusiyah, and then he said that learning Aqidah Sanusiyah is haram. So it shows the ignorance of a person. So ignorance, there are two types. We have compound ignorance, and we have normal ignorance. Normal ignorance meaning a person does not know anything about a particular subject. This is jahl mahad. But compound ignorance, he thought he knew. This is a problem. So the meaning, when we say Ibn Salah and Nawawi says that it is haram to learn mantiq, what they are referring to is the mantiq of the Greeks. Like why learning mantiq of the Greeks is mentioned as haram by Ibn Salah and Imam Nawawi? Because the logic, the early Greeks, the philosophers, early Greek and the philosophers, of course they are not Muslims. They worship many gods, basically. They worship many gods. Some of them worship idols. For example, If you study any about Greek any culture, you will find that, for example, they pray to a god by the name of Zeus, and then they have the god any of the mountain, and they have the god any of war, and so on and so forth, and they have all this in the form any of sculptures. So when they write their books and in logic, they mix it any with their religion, they mix it and with idol worship. So when they speak any about certain subjects any in logic, they bring any examples any of their gods. And for example, they speak about Zeus, they speak about all these idols any that they are worshipping, and they speak about metaphysics, about the power any of their gods, and so on and so forth. So Al-Imam al-Nawawi and Al-Imam Ibn Salah, they say this kind of logic that is mixed any with this wrong any aqidah of kufr. Now this is haram for a person who is learning it. It is not any permissible. So this is any the first any opinion the Shaykh any author any mentioned. وَقَالَ قَوْمٌ يَنْبَغِي أَنْ يُعْلَمَ. Second opinion say it is fardu kifaya. So can you see the difference now? Al-Imam Ibn Salah and Imam Nawawi, he mentioned is haram. Yeah, what they are referring to any is logic any that is mixed any with the Greeks, the Greeks and the religion of idol worship. And then the second opinion, and this is the opinion of Al-Imam Razali, Imam Fakhruddin Razi, where they say that it is fardu kifaya or sunnah. It's what Al-Imam Quwaisni mentioned in the Sharah of Sullam. Either any they are saying it is fardu kifaya. Some many ulama mention fardu kifaya. It is fardu kifaya. And some of our scholars and mention it is a sunnah, mustahab. It is mustahab to learn yani mantiq. And especially Al-Imam Razali, and he said, Man lam yatamantaq fala thiqata bi kalamihi. Those any who does not learn any knowledge any of mantiq, there is no reliance any on what any he is saying. Yani you cannot trust him any 100%, because yani he might any make any a lot of mistakes, because any he does not learn this subject of mantiq. This is any the opinion any of Al-Imam. This is any the opinion any of Al-Imam Razali. Our contemporary scholars, and like many of our contemporary scholars and scholars in mantiq, and for example, they say that this knowledge and it can become any fardu ain if we are surrounded any by ideologies any that can what you call it bring us any to kufr any, for example, by learning any mantiq any we can protect any our aqidah, by learning any how to counter, by learning any how to think any properly, by understanding arguments and premises and conclusion. Because now, for example, if you are facing any with Western any philosophy, for example, they speak any about their philosophy within the framework any of logic. So, for example, the atheist speaking any about his belief any, for example, and he mentioned that it is any the first premise and this is the second premise, and then he said that this is any the conclusion and this is my argument. So you have to understand these terminologies. What is the meaning of a premise? What is any the meaning any of a conclusion? What is the meaning of an argument? What is the meaning of any of reasoning? What is the meaning of deductive logic, for example? What is the meaning of Aristotelian logic? What is the meaning any of the define or definition? Because all these things any are used any in arguments, in use any in their intellectual any discourse. So if a Muslim any, for example, is surrounded any by this form any of philosophy and this form any of ideas, that he is not any familiar, and he does not know any how to counter any, for example, and he does not know how to understand the evidences within any the Islamic tradition that he can depend on to counter any these ideologies and to protect any his thinking, to protect any his thoughts any from falling any into astray, or falling any into the traps any of doubt any, for example, or trap any of skepticism. Because without understanding the framework any of logic, a person any might be skeptical any when confronted any with some arguments any within the Western any philosophy. Either any we are speaking any about atheism, or we are speaking any about secularism, or we are speaking any about agnosticism. So knowledge any of mantiq, knowledge any of logic, it it protect us any from making fault any into in thinking. And this subhanallah yani our Islam, even in our aqidah, even in our fiqh, even in our usul, everything is built on mantiq. like for example, when we speak about the evidences in kalam or in aqidah, for example, when we speak about the kalam cosmological argument, al-alam mutaghayyir wa kullu mutaghayyir hadith, al-alam hadith, and this is an argument. And we say that al-alam mutaghayyir, and this universe is always changing, is subjected to change. Wa kullu mutaghayyir hadith, and everything that is subjected to change is contingent. What is the conclusion? The conclusion, al-alam hadith, that the universe is contingent. Now this is an argument, and this is one of the most powerful arguments. Then we have to go back into the premises, and when we say al-alam mutaghayyir, and the world is changed, is it true? Is the premise correct? Because in order for us to determine the conclusion, the premises must be correct. So we have to go back and examine the premises. Al-alam mutaghayyir, is this correct or not correct? So now we go back and speak about substances and accidents. That the universe is made up of substances and accidents. That's what we study in Aqidah Sunnusiyah. Accidents are constantly changing. Accidents are contingent. Everybody agrees the accidents are contingent. And substances are things that accidents are subsistent in it. So if accidents are contingent, then substances must be contingent. And substances and accidents are contingent, and the world is made up of substances and contingent. So the world is contingent. What is the evidence that the world is contingent? Because it is changing. Because it is taghayyara. This is the one of the cosmological argument, kalam cosmological argument. In our lesson 2 days ago in Aqidah Sunnusiyah, we spoke about an argument pertaining to some of the philosophers, and they say that accidents are contingent, but substances are eternal. So then our scholars debated them by saying that if accidents are eternal, if substances are eternal, then it must mean that accidents must also be eternal, because substances and accidents cannot be separated. But if you to say that accidents are contingent, but substances are eternal, now this is impossible. This is impossible, because there is a contradiction. What is the contradiction? Because substances cannot exist without an accident. It must always subsist within the substance. So if the accidents are contingent, then the conclusion must also be substances are also contingent. Now these are some of the examples on how you understand aqidah by the framework of mantiq, by looking at premises and by looking at conclusion. So when you speak to an atheist, or you speak to a person who does not believe in the contingency of the universe, why it is important to say that the universe is contingent? Because the moment you say universe is contingent, then it is in need of the originator, the one who originates the universe from non-existence to existence. So it is logical. So everything that is contingent, it cannot exist by itself, but it is in need of an originator, and that originator is God, and this God must have no beginning, because if he has a beginning, then it will lead to infinite regression and all these things. So all this is by understanding mantiq, and you are able to understand all these arguments, and you are able to bring forth your arguments and to speak to people who does not believe in the existence of God, or people that says that the universe is eternal, for example, like some of the philosophers last time. So this is fardu kifaya. That's what our ulama mentioned, and this is the judgment that is accepted by our ulama. The judgment that is accepted, that it is fardu kifaya. Mantiq is fardu kifaya, and especially nowadays when we Muslims are confronted with a lot of ideologies. So it is important for us to learn this knowledge of mantiq. So I mentioned the first opinion is the opinion of Ibn Salah and Imam Nawawi. They say it is haram because I mentioned it's because of the mixing with the Greek religion of idol worship. The second opinion is the opinion of Imam Ghazali and those who followed his path, that it is fardu kifaya. طيب. And then he said wal-qawlatul mashhuratus sahiha. Then the author mentioned the third opinion, that to his opinion, and this is the the what you call it, the famous any opinion or prevailing any opinion, that it is jawaz, that it is permissible. Any learning any mantiq any is permissible, but there is a condition. Lisalimil qariha. Lisalimil qariha. Any qariha here meanings fitna. Fitna any meaning intelligence. Any a person who possesses some intelligence to deal with these arguments. But if a person is slow, and for example, and it is feared that if he study this knowledge and go into philosophy, and he might be confused, and for example, in his Islamic understanding, then it is not encouraged for this particular person to go into this particular field. And he must also be mumarisi sunnati wal kitab, and a person who studies the sunnah and sunnah and al-kitab in meaning the Quran, and he has a foundation in Islam, and not a complete beginner to Islam who does not even understand the basic pillars of Islam. So there is basically this standard that a person has to have, at least he must have some foundations in Islam. He understand what is iman, what is prayers, what is fiqh, for example, what is wajib upon him, the meaning of kalima shahada, the Prophet ﷺ, who is the Prophet ﷺ. All these are foundation in him. So if a person has a strong foundation, meaning after learning the foundations in Islam, and then he possesses that intelligence to cope with this knowledge in understanding any arguments and so on and so forth, then it is permissible for that particular person. Liyahtadi bihi ila sawabi, so that by learning any knowledge of mantiq, that he is able to find the truth. So knowledge of mantiq, and that's what we mentioned based on the definition. It is a tool, alatun. It is ala ta'simul adh-dhihna, ta'simul zihna. Yani it protects in your mind from the mistakes in thinking. Then the author mentioned anwa'u ilmi al-hadisi, anwa'u ilmi al-hadith, types of new knowledge. What is the meaning of new knowledge? When we study aqidah, for example, we say that the knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is qadim. The knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is qadim. What is the meaning of qadim? Qadim meaning pre-eternal. That knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not muktasab. And there is a term, the term muktasab. Muktasab is basically something that you derive, that you attain. So knowledge of other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is muktasab. For example, our knowledge is derived. Last time we are ignorant, now we know. So this is the meaning of new knowledge. Knowledge is hadith. Knowledge that is contingent. Last time you do not know, now you know. Last time you do not know, now you know. All of us we are ignorant. Initially when we are born into this world, all of us are ignorant. We do not understand anything. This is what the Quran said. لا تعلمون شيئا وأنتم في بطون أمهاتكم لا تعلمون شيئا. You are in the wombs of your mothers, and you do not know a single thing. Allah said. Allah is the one who taught us. علم الإنسان ما لم يعلم. Allah is the one who taught insan the things that he does not know. So the knowledge of insan is hadith. So hadith is knowledge that is attained. So what is the opposite of hadith? Qadim. So when we speak about knowledge of mantiq, or all these terminologies within the knowledge of mantiq, we are only concerned with new knowledge, knowledge, not the knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we cannot be saying that knowledge of Allah is there's tasawwur and there's tasdeeq. No, it cannot be applied. Knowledge of Allah is pre-eternal. So when we speak about knowledge here, we are speaking about al-ilmul hadith, knowledge that is contingent. So I translate as new knowledge. New knowledge, new knowledge meaning knowledge that is muktasab, knowledge that has beginning. So he said, idraku mufradin tasawwuran ulim. This is going to be our first lesson in mantiq. So once we reach here, so now this is the real subject any of mantiq or subject any of logic. So let us see what is the thing any that the author is speaking about. And now is the time any if you have the Isaruji of Al-Imam Al-Abahari, he starts any from here. He starts any from here. This is any the first thing any that we learn any in mantiq. So before this are all any basically speaks any about the Muqaddimah. He speaks about the ruling any of learning mantiq and so on and so forth. So now any we enter into the chapter any of mantiq. So he say idraku mufradin tasawwuran ulim. What is any the meaning? We have idraku mufradin, and mufrad and is basically any a particular word. Just give me a moment. I get my whiteboard. We have only a bit of time left. Anyway, now Azan Isha already. So I think any we postpone because this requires an explanation. What I will do, and inshallah ta'ala, I will give an examples, and inshallah. So we do it slowly, and no problem. So next week, inshallah, we will enter into idraku mufradin tasawwuran. And I will give examples. And what is the meaning of mufrad? What is the meaning of tasawwur? What is the meaning of tasdiq? I mentioned any some of this when we spoke about the definition of mantiq. But inshallah now we go into greater details. Wa sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Alhamdulillah rabbil alamin.